Aloha shifters, this is Brendon and welcome so much. Today I have a very special guest to be able to feature with you, to be able to share with the bigger community as to what she is doing within this bigger shift in consciousness. And I'm so happy to be able to be joined by Bridget Nielsen. So Bridget, say hello to the people and thank you for being here.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for having me. Hey!
Cool. So just as a quick introduction for people watching this, the objective of making this as an ongoing series is to be able to feature people who are helping shift consciousness within their own way. And Bridget is one of those people, and she's been making YouTube videos, and she has 2 different YouTube channels, which are going to be linked into this as well. And a part of her focus that I find super fascinating is that she really brings in a lot of the Starseed connections. And she's also really focused on creating community for people who are beginning to explore some of these Starseed ideas. And she openly talks about it, and she's had her own experiences. So she's going to share a little bit more about who she is and what she does. So Bridget, go ahead.
Thanks, Brendon. Yeah, it's awesome. Just in my own awakening process, just a lot of stuff happened, all these different connections to other realms, to other lives. But the one thing that was really prominent for me, which I didn't expect, was my connection to extraterrestrials and having that be a really dominant relevance in something I'm meant to bring through in this life and share with other people. And one of the things that happened when it started coming through me was that it wasn't talked about. It was very like a hush subject. You know, we can talk about like other lives as a witch or like even past lives very comfortably, but like extraterrestrials, even in the spiritual community, there's some blocks happening. So over the past few years, I've really been advocating, just like speaking out about my own experiences, and through that, through the hybrid children community and connecting in, there's been a lot of people come forward and really be like, oh, I've also had these experiences. I also may have been abducted. These things are real. I might have hybrid children that are connected to the ships. And that's like crazy and profound. So it's been my thing to be a bit more shocking, which I didn't expect to be like my life path. But I also love talking about just spirituality and like health and like all these other topics. But this cosmic thread has been one of the most like dominant ones that I guess people, the collective consciousness, needs to be, you know, invoked into our story.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously the themes of like aliens is something that we have seen throughout culture in various pop culture forms. So I mean, it's something people are familiar with, yet not something a lot of people openly think of as being real. And you know, some people are like waiting for the confirmation of aliens to appear through like a direct encounter or a UFO sighting. But obviously, like there's other ways that people are sort of awakening to the concept of our bigger cosmic story. But just, you know, going back to the basics, explain to us what a starseed is from your explanation.
My definition of starseed would be someone that has like a soul energy, soul fragments, like from star systems, from other planets. They could be the planet themselves. They could be from that civilization. So it would really be that they have other lives streaming through, and also a consciousness level that comes through from that. So it wouldn't just be a 4th density, or I mean, it would be more of like a 4th density, higher frequency energy streaming through into this life. So they would have that capacity to raise this current world and the, you know, third dimension to a higher state of being. So it would be bringing through that soul energy and just emanating it into this life. And the thing that I like to distinguish, which you love to too, is that it really, we are starseeds. We do have these connections. We do have this higher frequency that we're able to bring through, but that doesn't mean that that's all that we are meant to be here on Earth. And that's a really significant thing. And it's a beautiful thing to be ambassadors of this planet and not just be hyper associated with something out there.
Yeah, you're right. And it's good that like both of us are kind of on that same page, especially as like leaders within the community, is to say like, hey, you know, these ideas are super fascinating. They sound super exciting and they're super cool, but use discernment and stay grounded, or else it's very common for people to just be like so far out there that, you know, like we have to like sort of like tether them back and be like, hey, you know, like like let's get our feet back on the ground. Like it's again, you know, within the spiritual topic of like being connected to the higher source, yet keeping ourselves grounded into the earth. But go ahead if you have something to say on that as well.
Yeah, I'm just a big fan, as you are too, of like really taking physical action and doing our part to actively transform. And the cool thing is the more that we do that and the more that we be ourselves, express our nature, and like do it real time on this planet, the more that we actually get access to these other realms and to these other lives. So it's like we were talking about, like the game where you get extra points for actually doing your work. And some of the time, like, people don't think that's as fun, you know, to be healthy, or to sit down and meditate, or to like move past that fear, shift that belief. But really, it's going to be the thing that adds to this like magic and opens up these other realms.
Yeah. Now, obviously, like, there's a lot of ways that we can sort of branch this topic. One of the things that I kind of wanted to get into, because again, you know, like when we're talking about like the bigger picture here and stuff like that, you get into the idea that like Earth isn't necessarily the origin point, and that there's been like other civilizations throughout the universe that have like gone through their own awakening processes. And I find it really interesting that you have that picture of the friend behind you who is depicted as a blue alien. And for me, like the idea of the blue is something that I really resonate with, because like for me, long story short, is like when we see creatures who are blue, that's actually like a very common thing. And we see it within like Avatar, we see it in Smurfs, we see it in Dr. Manhattan, and particularly we see it within the Hindu gods, and of course within aliens. So I mean, for me, it's this idea that like what we actually see right now within like our waking state in our eyes is actually an inverted version of the color spectrum. So if you were to take a picture and put it in Photoshop and invert the image, you would realize that like we are actually the blue people right now. And so I mean, for me, that's a really like interesting thing, is that like for you to have like that character of the blue alien behind you. And I just wanted to say, you know, like, can you explain more about maybe your thoughts and your feelings about the idea that perhaps these other nations, these other star nations, have gone through their own spiritual ascension, and how that relates to our story and what Earth is going through as well, and their connection to like try and help us along this path?
That's an awesome question, because it's really like, that's the thing, is we are going through the spiritual transformation on this planet, but we've done it before. And that's what the purpose of us coming back here and being on this planet right now, through this like seeming chaos, through this seeming beauty, is that we have had these experiences on these other planets. Like Orion, for instance, has gone through like tremendous darkness, like karmic like darkness, and a lot of like our energies and kind of the soul origin has been planted on Earth too. But they have gone through that darkness into complete light. And so drawing upon it is really relevant if we can use it as that transformational energy to take the next step in consciousness, like on Earth now. So there's lots of different planets that have been through the transformation, and then there's also other star systems and energies that have just been like non-physical, holding it down on such a high level that we can draw upon what that completion looks like, what it ultimately looks like. Because I think that's a challenge for some people, is it's so kind of like there's a drama in a way to the challenges happening on Earth. And it can kind of get like, there's a fixation that can like happen like with all the things that are happening, because it can be dramatic. But it's like, what do we shoot for? What do we aim for as a truly like healed Earth, as a truly like vibrant humanity that doesn't have a ton of issues, like where, yeah, there's challenges, of course, and new growth, but what does it look like when we kind of like hit that point of balance, and letting that really sink in and be just as exciting, even though it doesn't have that dramatic like flair.
Yeah, and at the same time, you know, like there is like a super dramatic story that is happening here, and again, you know, it's this idea that like, as a story, as a particular concept, that like all of these different star nations have like gone through their own ascensions and evolutions, spanning across the perception of like billions of years theoretically, and now like all of these like different people, you know, we're just different humans, hues of mana. So I mean, humans aren't just humans on Earth. Hues of mana are like literally everything, alien, plant, and, you know, animals alike. So all these different humans have like come from these star nations onto Earth. So it seems like Earth is this very particular school, because it's like the home to many, many different star cultures who are playing in this role of forgetting who they are, yet awakening to who they are, and to be able to directly help with this like unique ascension process that in some ways may be a first. Like as much as they've gone through their own, you know, like this is what's happening on Earth is like such a unique and exciting thing that is happening. Yeah, like go ahead if there's anything you want to say related to like what our ascension process looks like, or just like all these civilizations coming here to Earth, and maybe I know we'll get into more questions as we go, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the ascension process too, like one of the things that fascinates me is the timing, because like in some ways, like being like on the leading edge of it, it feels like it needs to go faster, you know, or something. Like it's like whoa, and we can have this foresight and see where it's going, but really in this ascension process, like to just be present and to be now, and that will make everything go much faster, and to enjoy the process. And it's kind of like giving birth or something, and it's like it's uncomfortable and stuff, but it's like there's so much beauty in it. So that's one of the things that, like, I don't know, I think comes up a lot, because it's like, let's get there, like let's get disclosure, let's get, you know, the bank's gone, and it's like, well, let's breathe along the way and like enjoy the process. So that's something I wanted to add in.
Yeah. And again, you know, just sort of jumping around on questions, like yeah, like I wanted to ask you, you know, like what are some of the things that are connection, well, it's a two-part, maybe we can ask this in a different order, but I want to say, you know, like what are some of the ways that you've like had connection with your own personal understanding of these star nations? And the other question is going to be like, yeah, like what are they trying to help us remember in particular? And this could get very multidimensional, and so by all means, go ahead.
Exactly. They're trying to have us remember that we are multidimensional, that we're not just like bound to this construct of reality, to this matrix. It's like we are so much more. And when we can understand that, when we can realize that we are existence just expressing itself, but I mean real time, intrinsically, like in ourselves, feel that, then we have access where we become creators again. We become like mini gods of our own reality. And so that's one of the big things that they're wanting to remind us, and like and gently coax us, you know, like they're not coming down and being like, remember, you know, they're really like prompting this cultivation like within ourselves, which is beautiful. And a lot of people, including me, like there's been these experiences from when I was like a kid where it was remember, like these little plants, these subtle like hits that along the way that we can like grasp on now, that come through dreams a lot of time, or it can come through real experiences, whatever people's experience is. But for me, I experienced it through a regression, but from when I was really little, it was like this Pleiadian, and I don't need to get fixed into like what star system, but it was a Pleiadian that came to me, and it was like, I am you, you have this other life as me. And that's the cool thing too, is they remember you, like they're aware of you and you're aware of them. It goes both ways. And he was like, I'm you, and you chose us. We both chose to come down here right now and spread this message and to remember. And that is what made me feel safe as a kid, kind of entering this strange world that was foreign to like my energy or to my natural rhythms. It was like, oh, I got this greater support. And that's a part too, is like it's supportive, you know, it is in us and it's also supporting us.
Definitely. One of the questions that I wanted to get into, and you've talked about this before, is the idea of like real-time disclosure. And, you know, because again, you know, like that's something, disclosure, like people, they've been waiting for this for like decades. They're like, Obama's going to talk about it. Here it comes. And then nothing happens. Right. But like there have been like stories that are constantly appearing across the internet, but they aren't just necessarily making it into the mainstream. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you, you know, like, how do you feel disclosure will happen and is happening? And
Yeah.
What does disclosure even mean?
Yeah, I mean, disclosure is really just like a full remembrance, right? It's like a full collective remembrance that all this stuff is happening, and particularly that extraterrestrials and there is life, like crazy life, lots of life on other planets. So that would be like what disclosure is. It's happening in real time. I mean, Canada, right? Canadian Prime Minister like came out and said it. I mean, you've got like the defense of Mexico coming out, like a lot of different militaries around the world are real time saying it. It's not getting out there like fully in the mainstream yet, but I think that's just a reflection of where we're at. Because I mean, even people that have been in the community in spiritual transformation for a long time, they don't, there's even questions in them. There's even questions in us. And so I think that little like bit of, is the magic real? Like, do they really exist? You know, that needing of the outside reflection, I think is the thing kind of like holding us back. So when we can really just like leap into this knowingness, I think that's going to catapult us, as well as, I mean, just fully disclosing in ourselves. And I'm a big advocate for that, because it's like whatever we do on the microcosm will reflect on the macro. So the more that we can disclose, and it's not just about our experiences in these like dream times or realms where we have these extraterrestrial connections, but it's disclosure of who we are, like in our personal relationships, who we are, you know, like, are we doing what we love to do? Are we at a crap job? Like being really honest with ourselves. So it really starts with self-disclosure for me. And that's where it needs to start. And then of course, like the collective story can then start to rearrange itself to support the greater understanding.
Yeah. One of the things within like the story of, you know, like aliens being present and everything that I'm really interested in is like the idea that like they're watching us a lot of times, but like it's almost as if there's like this collective agreement that they can't directly interfere. I was curious as to like if you have any information on that you've heard, because I've heard that like Earth is kind of like not necessarily just in a quarantine, but like there's like a higher council that says like, okay, you know, like in order for Earth to do what it needs to do, like we can't go in there just yet. They have to figure this out on their own, but we're going to help them in subtle ways. And, you know, like, and what are some of the ways that they are, you know, like helping us and things, and anything related to that? This is getting exciting.
That's an awesome question. I think it comes down to the idea of the chrysalis and like the butterfly, like in the chrysalis, and if you're just about to like break free, you need to get your own strength. You need to do it yourself. And if you don't, and someone else like breaks the almost butterfly out before it's ready, it won't fly. It won't be strong enough. And there's so much, and I've had kind of like insights into how much we're going to go through as humans. Like as all this stuff comes up, it's like, oh my gosh, like the whole world, every aspect is going to change. Like the stuff that's truly going on in space is really going to come forward. And it's like, damn, we're going to need as much inner resilience and like strength as possible for all of that. So so I think that's one of the reasons. And so it's the idea of like the prime directive, you know, from Star Trek. It's like, you can't interfere, you can't intervene. And that's one of the big reasons why it's for us to do. And in a way they are intervening, because we are them. That is like, you know, remembering and like breaking out of our shells. So we are remembering and they are engaging, but it is that subtle energy, kind of like our guides, right? Our guides and like angels. It's like, it's just like a whisper, you know, and it's just like a hum. And in a way that can be not as exciting as we usually have this inundation of information and real-time stuff like really happening and punching us. So it's on the subtle levels that we hear it. And once we can kind of clear our minds and really sit with it and have these moments of connection, it actually isn't subtle, it's deeply profound. So it's a mix, and it's a really fun process.
Yeah, it's exciting to think of like where our future is going in terms of this idea of just like not just saying like, okay, like we have this relationship with aliens, but awakening to the fact that like we already are the aliens in a way. And like that was like something, and this is just like a side story. You know, I mentioned this to other people, but like within like an experience that I had not too long ago with 5 grams of sacred mushrooms, and obviously like when you're in that space, it's like very, very permanent that like there is this connection to like a a higher reality and everything. And it was funny, like I'm sharing this just because it was humorous, but you know, like I did it out in a field by myself, and it was nighttime at that point, and I was standing there and I had a headlamp on, and I was kind of like trying to make contact with aliens in a way, you know, I was just like putting it out there and stuff like that. And then basically I was like sitting there and I was meditating and I was doing mantras and I was like kind of making like funny noises and stuff like that. And then it dawned on me. I was just like, oh my God, I am the alien, you know? So if someone like was like walking by the field and just saw the like spinning light in the field going, woo, or just like, you know, I'm just like, oh shit, like, of course. And literally like in that moment, I just felt, I was just like, you know, I was like ground control to like Major Tom, like we are feet on the ground. Like I really felt like that like, you know, that a part of me had traveled through the stars and now we were here, we were on the ground and everything. So I mean, just having from my own personal experience that visceral awareness to feel that, but at the same time not let that disassociate what it is that we are actually doing here, but just to integrate that into a more complete and complex and beautiful understanding of who we are. But one of the things I was just going to say, you know, like how do you feel that discernment needs to be like incorporated as people begin to explore this? And I know we talked about the idea of like I know the concept of like earth seed, and that's something that I resonate with. And how do we bring this back to like, you know, how do we embody these concepts into a way to like understand more about like what it is that we're doing here? And again, using discernment and anything like that. Cause I just feel like that's such an important topic. If there's more to hit on that, go ahead.
Yeah. Discernment. Whew. I feel like people especially like when entering, I mean, even not even to aliens yet, but just like other realms, it's like a real development of those skills. I mean, I was trained for a few years like doing these different things, and I feel like having some kind of structure in which to engage out is really important, because that helps with the discerning of the energy so that you can really read what it is and understand like how to navigate it. So I think that doing a development of your skills is key. It's a little tricky because especially us like from this generation, a lot of it's just already on, you know, or like through psychedelics, it can just be on. And so it's like, then how do you navigate that? So I think doing certain things to cultivate that training really, because that's what initiates used to do, you know, like they were trained as like priestesses for like 10 years before they were doing stuff. And so really kind of going back to that and making it more of a sacred art, I think is one step. Discernment as far as relevancy, you know, I think that's what it comes down to, is it's like, how is this relevant? And so when you have these profound, crazy experiences, it's like, how can I bring this back into my life and use that consciously? Because a lot of it can be abstract or conceptual or this feeling, and going, okay, what was like the gem of this, and then how can I apply this to a certain category in my life right now? And I'm going to do that right now. Like where I've had, say, like I was just in Glastonbury, throat chakra of the planet, and it's all about expression, right? An open throat chakra. And I come home and some things were going on, and it's like, okay, well, shit, the reason I went there was to go activate that, was to go open that. I better speak my truth right now, like right now, you know? And so letting that flow through, and there be a mixture between those two. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect even with like the observer and the participant with like technology, where it's like we watch the movie and it's like great, and then we go back to our lives and it's like no, bring it in, like and integrate it and figure out, like sit down and contemplate or write out how you can bring it back.
Yeah. This all comes back to like integration. And I feel like that's like what we're moving towards, is that this is through Earth, like we're witnessing us becoming more mature about these topics. And I feel like that's part of the reason why like UFOs and aliens can't just show up yet. Cause like we're literally not mature enough. Like we are still like children. We are still like so just like new to a lot of this, or at least it feels like we are. As we continue to remember, we're connecting with like deeper truths and deeper paths, knowing that we've done this before. Some of the things that I want to get into while we're just like still within this interview, I wanted to be able to talk about maybe your thoughts on like aliens, quote unquote aliens, and their connection to our history and our past, and like concept of ancient aliens and how legitimate those ideas are. I also want to talk about like the fairy folk and how like this connects within that, because I know both of us are like big advocates of like the fairy realms and how that relates to this bigger story of magic coming to the fruition of reality. And I also want to be able to talk to you about just to give you a chance to share some of your thoughts on crop circles and what crop circles are actually doing and how those are actually helping shift consciousness. And I know you actually got to go see one not too long ago. So if you want to jump in on any order of those, feel free out of those three, feel free to jump on which one you want.
Awesome. Yeah, ancient aliens. It's like, yeah, duh. You know, like, of course, like, how many episodes, right, of that show do we need to like prove it, right? Or just going to these places, like going to the Great Pyramid, going to Peru, going to these places and being like, you look at the stone, just as simple as this, like not tuning in, but just like with your mind. And you're like, you look at this giant stone that's like the biggest thing you've ever seen. And you're like, there's no way they could have carried that. There's no way, like 100 man couldn't fit around it to carry it. Just simple things like that, where it's like, there is like more that was happening here. And of course, just the intelligence and like the transmission that is kind of lost in the ancient wisdoms that is still exists, but where did we get that? Like it's come through from something else. And there's so many different star systems that have attempted to help us along the way. And some of them have intervened too much and then it didn't quite work out. So it's like, we have been helped and it's very obvious. So, and that's why I'm an advocate of traveling, because you go to these places and you're like, I know, I can feel it. And so just letting yourself feel that. So big fan of ancient aliens as a concept. And then as far as, let's see, fairy folk or crop circles. Okay, well, I was just in a crop circle. I was in 2 crop circles last week. Yeah, like just last week. And they are powerful. And I didn't have expectations on it. But to me, they are created by these extraterrestrial consciousness and a co-creation with our human collective consciousness. So it's a mix of, it's really a modern day miracle of creative manifestation of consciousness. That's how I feel that it is. And the delicacy and the intricacy in which that it was created, there's no way it couldn't be something magical and beyond our understanding, which I love, because anything that we can get, right? Like people, seek these like UFO experiences or something beyond. And it's like, that's just right there. I mean, every summer, however many, like 20, 50, they're right there, living miracles. And it's something that I think we just need to kind of like hit ourselves over the head with. Just be like, they're everywhere. It's awesome.
Yeah, just to add into that with the crop circle topic before we get into the fairy folk, or even just going back to the ancient aliens thing, just connect a couple dots for people to think about. Yeah, like I feel like, again, like this is consciousness doing what it can to help wake itself up, be it human form or alien form. And I feel like a lot of like the ancient alien connections weren't just necessarily about technology and like building like architecture and everything like that, but it was about the knowledge that they were carrying. And that's where you get into like ancient Egypt and everything like that. And the pyramids were actually like ascension chambers and everything, and just like all of that knowledge kind of coming through. But it's interesting to note that like the interconnected like relationship between humans and aliens is probably only appeared to be less evident within like the last like 200 years, since media became more apparent and the world became a smaller place. And now, like there used to get these arbitrary UFO sightings, but you don't get like these like feet on the ground experiences quite in the same way, even though they might have happened in the past. And then the crop circle thing I just wanted to say is that what I find fascinating is that the crop circles are often depicted as like sacred geometry. And so sacred geometry is like this language of the universe that is actually like us seeing ourselves, seeing these patterns, seeing these underlying proportions all throughout nature, and knowing that we are sacred geometry. And so simply, I feel like the purpose of having a crop circle with something like a pine cone spiral is for people simply to see it. And even if they don't fully know what it is, simply by seeing it, they're just like, whoa, like that pattern attracts to me and it speaks to a deeper part of me. So crop circles, again, I feel like they're a phenomena that's only appeared within the last 100 years since man started making planes. So it seems as if the crop circles are there to be seen in a way. It's like the aliens' way of like using like social media in a sense. They're like giant like yeah, they're there, they're art, and they're meant to be seen. And simply by seeing these symbols, they're pointing us in the direction to say, like, this is important. These symbols are activating parts of ourselves, and some of them are like actually like blueprints for like cosmic ideas and stuff like that. So yeah.
It's true. And that's the thing, is like there's signs all along the way, right? They're clues. And that goes with just seeing the pyramids, like just seeing these things that have been created, and seeing the crop circles. It's just mirroring kind of like our next step, and it's instantaneous. I love that with the crop circles too. I mean, I'm pretty sure the day that the one that I was made in, the shark one, was the day that England left the EU. And it's like real time, like you said, kind of like imprinted sacred geometry, like encodement of like their, their view on it, as well as like our collective manifestation of it. So it's a really interesting, way to communicate. It's a communication tool.
Cool. Well, I know we're going to be getting close to the end of this broadcast soon, but yeah, let's talk about the fairy folk before we do, and then any other projects that I know you're involved with that you can share with the audience as well. So, what's the deal with fairies? Real, not real? Are we the fairies?
Real for sure. I mean, I've just kind of always known that. That's like been before aliens, before anything, it was the fairies, and it did start out as that because that was the only way that I could like think of it. But like the little guys, like the little fairies, but there were so many different kind of just, that felt more resonant than anything when I was a kid. That was like my number one connection. I haven't connected to specific, say, like other lives and what I was doing there, but I've always known that it exists. Like I can always feel that it exists behind. I sense it, like there's a sensory, and it feels like it's coming more and more to life. Like even that was one of my intentions for going to Ireland and England, is it's like, I know you're there and I'm coming to tell you that I know, and like I can feel you. And it just feels, it's really good because, as you've said, it just opens up the magic. Like we just need to open up that magic and know that it is who we are, and infuse it into this time, because with magic we can do anything. We can just we can change this world, we can change the reality and morph it. It's part of our creatorship. So fairies, yes. And I think going, and there's so many different beings everywhere. Actually, I had this really cool experience I'll tell real quick in Orcas Island in the Pacific Northwest. It's a really sacred island, lots of UFO activity. But we went up this mountain that had been closed for like 30 years because it was privately owned. And me and my friend could feel, like almost see these certain like elven fairy folk, and they hadn't seen humans. They hadn't been recognized by humans in so long that they almost like sound the alarm. They're like, what? Like we've been seen, like we've been recognized. And I'm like, no, like I come in peace. And there was this whole like telepathic thing. And my friend's like, we need to get out of here. I'm like, no, this is important. They need to know that people know, like it. And so there's like this engagement between us and them, and it was spectacular. And there were the little amanita mushrooms like right around it. And it was just like totally off the charts magical. So it's like connecting wherever you are to them, because they exist in their different forms. And of course they can be like the small like things and also full civilizations. So there's a lot, and just like letting the imagination go with it is going to be really healthy to connect with them.
Yeah, that's like crazy to hear in the good way. But I mean, like I'm not sure if you do want to expand on more about that, like just the idea that like based on that you sort of explain that like you had some sort of communication, but like could you see them, or was it like what prompted your awareness of them, and how can other people potentially communicate with these other fairy folk of these multiple dimensions that are part of this earth plane?
Right. Well, I feel like going into nature and feeling like letting yourself be completely present, first of all, so that you can feel when energies change and you're moving through different maybe dimensions or moving through different realms, and there's other non-physical beings, whether it's like the devas of the forest, whatever it is, and just like being conscious as you're there. And then there's actual physical attributes that then pop up where you're like looking at the tree and you're like, that is a full-on face. Like I can see it's created itself to be a face, and that doesn't, it's just showing its animation, like that it is a living entity, and there is like a being behind it. So in this particular area, it was just like I could see that like a house, like full on, like kind of constructed in on the side of the mountain, and I couldn't even walk over there. Like I started to walk towards it, and that's why they started to get upset, and I could like feel the energy, and my friend was like, "What are you doing? Like, get out of there. Like, it's their sacred turf." And I'm like, no, I meant to like bridge this. I meant to like it's fine if they're flustered. That's okay, because like I need to show them that it's okay. And so I would just say to just play like a kid, pretend like they're there, but I mean only when you start to actually like feel something shift in yourself, and then they'll feel safe to start to like come out a little bit, you know. And there can be, it is telepathic, and for me right now it was more clairvoyant because they didn't physically come out of their little shelters, but I could see the like configuration of like their little town and like the outposts. Like there are a few outposts, and like I went past that boundary, and it was a whole thing, and it was very real. And this is where the going into cultivating these skills and getting trained in them so that you can discern what's real and what's not, because I can walk through forests all the time and have nothing happen. It just happened to be that came up in that place. And so it's not just to like start making things up, but to start imagining and opening to it would be really good.
Yeah, and I feel like with the fairy folk, and again, you know, like there's multiple ways to connect with them, including within the dream space. One of the things that I've heard is to like really, you know, like put that intention out there, invite them, like verbalize it, say, you know, like I am here to be able to talk. And even one thing that they talk about with fairy folk, if you're like looking to connect with them in your dreams, is to like offer them something. Yes. You know, you give them an offering, and so there's like an energy exchange, and that like shows them that like you're serious about it, sort of thing. So yeah. Well, I know again, just we're going to be wrapping this up, but thank you so much for being a part of this. And I know let's just like add in some final points. So like, what do you feel people need to keep in mind moving into the future related to the bigger picture of our story, and how they can help be a part of this shift, and how they can help be a Bridget between these multidimensional worlds? So
oh God, I think that you write the story, you know, that like you really are writing it, and to just get that in you and to consciously participate in the writing of it, in every act, in everything you watch and everything you participate in, and know that that is weaving the story of what you're experiencing, and just to take responsibility for that, but also like have fun in that creation mode, and to play with it and be flexible, especially with all the stuff that will likely come up, which is awesome because it's breaking down the old structures to rebuild anew, and to know that we have to rebuild it anew. No one's going to build it for us. Like, we are the ones to do it. And each of us have our own individual part to really figure out what that is and start stepping into it.
Yes, indeed. The Starseeds have landed. So yeah, definitely. Like, we are the blue people, like straight up. Like, that's we're remembering our bigger stories and our bigger families. So cool. All right. Well, as we get closer wrapping this up, just any other websites, because I know you're within your family, your father has an awesome website, and you can just let people know about that and other ways that people can connect with you. So go ahead, Bridget.
Yes. Okay. So for YouTube, the stuff that all the videos about extraterrestrials and like that kind of energy is the hybrid children, and the website for that is hybridchildrencommunity.com. And then my personal channel that's more about spiritual transformation, health, wellness, all joy, passion, all that stuff, that is the Bridget Nielsen YouTube channel. And then my website is Bridget Nielsen. You'll see the spelling on somewhere on here. And then my dad's doing all the stuff of like rebuilding like the new kind of template of what the world can be. You know, it's like, well, okay, all the stuff's falling apart, so then what is the new template? So he's done a really great job of creating awesome blogs and awesome content to kind of like implant those new ideas so that we can feel what that is. And his website is harmoniousearth.org, and we do all of our adventures traveling around the world doing that so that we can come together in person in sacred sites and just like feel community real time.
Well, it's super exciting, and again, like, thank you for inspiring me and for inspiring so many others to just like get excited to know that there is a bigger story that is happening, and to know that they have a place where they can talk about it and they can live it. And what you're doing is awesome, and I think like this is just the beginning, no doubt. So yeah, Bridget, is there any last things that we say just before we add the closing dawn to the show?
Thanks for everything you're doing. I mean, everyone that's watching this, he's like doing his thing, and it's like, like do it like him, and like do it with him, and like let's all do it together. It's just awesome. So thanks for everything that you've created.
Awesome. And we are doing it together. And again, thank you so much for everyone for tuning into this. And of course, check out Bridget's information, subscribe to her channels, check out and share her videos, and stay tuned for more of these type of interviews that we'll do, and we'll feature more people within the community. And if you yourself know someone or are someone who wants to be featured, then please feel free to message me or leave a comment below, and leave your comments and thoughts as to what you thought about the Starseed activation happening here on Earth. And of course, you can connect more with this project at ParadigmShiftCentral.com, a real-world interactive game to help shift consciousness. And thank you so much. Subscribe to this channel for more consciousness shifting media, and reminding you to be the change that you wish to see in the world, to be the shift, to hack the matrix with love, and to awaken within the dream. So Bridget, thank you so much, and join me in saying goodbye and aloha to the people tuning into this. So aloha, guys. We love you. Cool. Keep it shifty, guys. One love. Peace.